If you really struggle when it comes to riding hills, today I just want to pack some things into this video to share with you how you can now use this winter to really improve your hill climbing. And what I'm going to share with you today is just what we are seeing that is working in our practice at the moment with our clients. We are seeing that, over a 12-week period, they're increasing their FTP by 25 to 50 watts. They're bringing their body weight back down by 10 to 15 kilos if they want to lose that much. And that is just drastically increasing their power to weight ratio, which is transforming their hill climbing. So if at the moment you are just finding that you've started doing a bit of training this winter, you might be on your turbo trainer, you might still be riding outside, your indoor bike, watt bike, whatever it is you use, and you're just jumping on and selecting random workouts at the moment, haven't got much direction, then today I just want to really give you some direction, some targets that you can now implement straight away to really start targeting those systems, lifting that power, improving your power to weight ratio, so you can really improve your hill climbing next spring. First type of training or system that I really want to dive into with you today first then is threshold, okay? And in real simple terms, threshold, when I refer to threshold, I basically mean that spending time at and around your FTP. So if you watched some of my other videos recently, I emphasised certainly at this time of year, the first thing we want to do is just establish where your FTP is. So we've got a baseline that we can actually benchmark and track progress from, but so we know that when you're getting on the trainer or on the bike, if you're still riding outdoors, if it's indoors, as I mentioned at the start, whatever platform you're using, you know that when you're actually performing threshold training, and what I'm going to share with you today, this is absolutely crucial, that you are spending time at and around what is currently your threshold, or really that could also be referred to as FTP, functional threshold power, okay? Now, you may have already been doing some threshold training. You might think, yeah, Ben, last night I went on Zwift or Training Peaks Virtual or one of the platforms and I did a threshold session. So this isn't new to me. What I want to share with you today is the time that you actually need to accumulate at threshold on a weekly basis to see improvement. Because as I said, it's great you're doing one threshold session maybe a week and then maybe not doing another one for 2 weeks or 3 weeks, or doing 2 one week and not one the next week. What I'm going to do today is I'm just going to give you a system, a playbook that you can use in terms of if you spend this amount of time at threshold each week, you'll probably find that you'll be able to maximize the time that you're spending on the bike better, but get more from it as well. So threshold intervals to begin with, when we're doing this for a week, I want you to try and accumulate between 30 to 40 minutes at threshold within one of your training weeks. Okay, so there's various ways that you can do this. And just to make this more specific to you, this will depend on how much you have actually been doing at the moment as well. So you might be at the lower end of this, you might be doing, closer to 30 minutes at threshold a week. If you haven't been doing any riding now through maybe the autumn, it really tapered off over the summer, or you've just been doing, just jumping on and riding and haven't really been doing anything structured whatsoever, then I'd recommend that you actually start by trying to accumulate 30 minutes at threshold with one of your threshold sessions to begin with. Now you can actually split this over rides, but that's where things start to get a bit more complicated and you have to structure it, time it, build it out correctly, and that's where we would come in and help if we were to work together. But just keep this really simple to understand today. A really easy session that you can start with is doing 3 times 10 minutes basically at and around your FTP, or you could call it between, so we just say 90 to 100% of your FTP at the moment. And that will straight away, within that threshold session, that will get you 30 minutes at threshold. You can build out 3 10-minute blocks, and between that you can have a 5-minute rest ratio, you can have a 6-minute, 7-minute, 8-minute. I'd recommend at least 5 minutes to begin with. But and you can perform that you can get that done within an hour as well. You can actually, because you now know you've got a structure, you're getting on, you're doing 3 times 10 minutes, you're doing that at 92% of FTP, then you know that when you're getting on, you can target that and really start to work on that sustained power. And this is why threshold training is so important for climbing, because it generally is when we're doing certainly those longer sustained type climbs. If you're coming over here into the Alps, you're going to the Pyrenees next year, you're going to Mallorca, you're going to Spain, Colorado, I'm just saying, over in Middle East, I'm just saying where we've got clients all over the world, then those longer type climbs, you're really going to want to be able to improve your ability to sustain that power output. And to do that, we need to actually be able to train it. What you can then start to do is add a bit of progression in with this as well, just to give you on how you can progress this. You can actually start to then increase this a little bit. So you might go 3 times 8-minute blocks. You might go 3 or 4 times 10-minute blocks. There's various ways that you can go about this. And again, that's where we would come in and really devise that out with you, depending on the time that you've got. But just so you've actually got a basic structure that you can follow today, if you know that one session a week you're doing threshold and you're starting off by doing 3 times 10 minutes, and just to give you the intensity there again, it probably wants to be anything between, pen's gone, get a new one down here, 90 to, I would say, 100 max and 5% of your FTP. The shorter the interval, the closer it's going to be to here. So if you're doing some 8-minute efforts, for example, you might do those at or slightly above FTP, so between 100 and 105% of FTP. If you're starting to, what you can actually do out here as well to progress is you might do a 2 times 15, 2 times 60. Famous, a well-known Pogacar type workout. Yeah, you might do 2 times 15 minutes, 2 times 60 minutes. Another one is a 2 times 20 minute, but you need to be able to really, build that up. That 2 times 20 minute is, I'd say, if you've done actually maybe, 1 or 2 4-week blocks of actually doing some threshold training, 2 times 20 minutes obviously straight away gets you that 40 minutes, and that would be a more advanced workout. But to begin with, if you haven't done anything, you're just jumping on at the minute, picking random workouts, and there hasn't actually been any sequence or structure to what you're doing to build on from each session, then start with a 3 times 10 and really build yourself on from there. Second training method or system then, and this one is absolutely crucial, not just for your climbing, but also long-term health, longevity, generally all-round well-being. And that is, you've probably heard of it before, certainly in the past few years, the famous VO2 max. Okay, now the reason why this is firstly so important for your climbing, as training your VO2 max allows your body to improve its ability to utilize oxygen. Probably agree with me, you've been on a climb before, maybe a very steep, short, sharper type climb, where you've literally been at your absolute limit, and that is what has prevented you being able to actually ride up the climb any faster. And ultimately, there's a number of limiters, but ultimately what is limiting you being able to produce more power or put more force through the pedals to ride up that climb faster is your body is not being able to get enough oxygen out to the periphery, to the working muscles, to actually produce more force, okay? As I say, there are some other factors, but that is a big, big influencer of you being able to actually ride uphill faster. So if we can actually improve our body's ability to deliver oxygen through our blood to our working muscles, it means we're going to be able to actually produce more power when we're riding up climbs. And as I say, the health benefits of that, it also associates with improved cardiovascular health, generally longevity with your health, the body, organs, brain, everything just functions normally, generally. Obviously, there could be other things out there, injuries, illnesses that may be present, but just as a real general sort of holistic approach here today, improving your VO2 max is going to have a really positive impact on your performance on the bike, but also your health in general as well. So just to give you some targets, again, you might say, Ben, yeah, I've been doing VO2 max sessions for the past 3 years, okay? But just to actually give you some structure of this again, so you're not doing it sporadically, but I guess, the minimum intensity that is actually required for you to see benefits with this. And I would always target, really, this is the key, what I've seen, as I say, what's working with our clients at the moment, but I've done a lot of research on this as well over the past 10, almost 15 years now from when I was initially doing my studies as well at university, sport science and everything in there. There's loads of research, but it's become a lot more prevalent in the past few years. 16 minutes, okay, is what we want to try and accumulate at VO2 max on a weekly basis, okay? Easiest way to do this, the most popular protocol that has certainly become prominent in the past few years is the 4 times 4 minutes, okay? Now, to do the 4 times 4, the target power that I'd like you to target there is 110 to 115. Sorry, I'm writing an angle. Can't be having that 5 there. That's out. Let's get rid of that one there. 115% of your FTP, okay? Now, again, to give you some specifics to start with, if you haven't done too much VO2 max training, you haven't really done any top end training, again, you've just been jumping on and riding, turning the legs over, recovery rides, a little bit of zone 2 riding, haven't really got your heart rate really up close to its max in the past 4 to 6 weeks, then you probably want to, one, as I said at the start, you have to do a test. Okay, you have to actually know where your FTP is at the moment. Because a big mistake I see a lot of riders make is they'll maybe done an FTP test in the summer, which is when generally we do our most amount of riding. Generally, again, we are at our fittest in the year, in the summer. And what they'll do is if you haven't done an FTP test, for example, since then, and you've since the summer now haven't done much riding, certainly haven't done any, what I would also refer to this as like top end VO2 max training, so where your heart rate is close to its max, then if you take that FTP from the summer and you put that back into Swift, Training Peaks Virtual, Ruvi, Wattbike, I'm just listing off some of the platforms that come to mind at the moment. 9 times out of 10, you're going to really struggle to complete this workout. Okay, so that's another reason why it's so important. It might hurt a little bit, knowing that you're actually going to have to drop your FTP down. But again, this is a big mistake that I see a lot of riders make. They don't want to hurt their pride with it, and they'll just take that FTP and they'll just keep smashing themselves at that FTP, not being able to complete the full set of work intervals that are in a session, which is then not really productive training whatsoever, and then they lose motivation, and 2 weeks later we're back at square one again. Okay, so sometimes it's better to take 1 step back to take 2 steps forward, which may mean an FTP test. It may actually mean bringing your FTP down by a few watts. Train at that for 4 to 8 weeks, and I guarantee you'll probably actually be further than you were in the summer, certainly if you actually start doing some of this stuff that I'm sharing with you today. Okay, so you may start, again, if you're just getting back into it, you do your FTP test, you get back into it, doing the 4 times 4 minutes at 110. I don't know what's going on my pens here today. 110. It's normally when I rub them with the board rubber, then I have to use a new pen for some reason. You start at 110% of your FTP, okay, and then once you've done that for a couple of weeks, you can get into doing that 4 times 4. You may then start to progress that with 115%, okay. Now you don't always have to do a 4 times 4, okay. When you're targeting VO2 max, just to give you a breakdown here, you probably want to be around interval lengths between 3 to 8 minutes in length. Here there'll be a bit of a crossover you may see from the threshold ones that I gave you a moment ago, and this will be anything between 105 to 120% of your FTP. Okay, just to give you some numbers so you've got some structure and what you can work with and the targets here as well. And as I want to try and just give you a little bit of direction today, the time that you need to spend and some intensities to focus on as well. Okay, so you can then take that, and as I say, if the interval is longer, okay, then it means that it's going to be actually, so if you're doing something that's 120%, it's probably going to be something that's closer to 3 minutes in length. If it's a longer one, you'll see 105, 106. We've got that crossover a little bit with our threshold. Then that's going to want to be something that's around 8 minutes in length. So there's a bit of a crossover there with the threshold. I'd probably recommend that's why, to really get those VO2 max benefits to begin with, those adaptations that I was mentioning at the start there, then 4 times 4 is a great one to work with. You can then progress that to maybe a 4 times 5 when you're really starting to actually maybe push this up to even a progression again, just to give you some progressions. You might start accumulating 20 minutes. But as I say, if you're watching this, you haven't done much, you haven't been using this sort of structure to begin with, start with a 16 minutes. And if you do this, you will see amazing improvements with it, okay, with your climbing, everything. Now, you might be saying as well, that's quite a lot of intensity to be doing there, Ben, okay? That's like threshold session, VO2 max. What about this zone 2 training that everybody's talking about at the moment? Do I need to be doing that as well? The answer is really yes, okay? If you can, if you think about just the session structure here, what I shared with you earlier with the threshold in this, if you do a 10-minute warm-up, you break out some of these intervals, and then you do a 5 to 10-minute cool down. The threshold session that I've shown you and the VO2 max session that I've shown you, you're going to be able to do that in an hour. Okay, so that's 2 60-minute sessions. You've got some of the most productive training you can do on the bike to improve your climbing in 2 hours in a week. Okay, if you then have maybe another hour that you can piece into that week, you have another 2 hours, 3 hours, 4 hours, 5 hours, 6 hours, whatever that might be, that can be your zone 2. Okay, so really we're only doing the 2 1-hour intense interval training sessions. Anything else you're doing, certainly this time of year, without getting into real specifics and not knowing you as an individual, you do want to book in for a free consultation, by the way, and just have a chat, see where you're at. There'll be a link on the page somewhere. But outside of those 2 intense interval sessions, just do your zone 2 riding around that. Okay, so you might be doing an extra, should we say, what we see sometimes our clients who are training 3 to 5 hours a week, some can do 5 to 7, who we help prepare for or just help improve with some of the things I mentioned earlier. They're doing between 3 to 5 or 5 to 7 hours a week, and generally it will be the rest of the training outside any specific interval work we're doing with them will be around zone 2 riding. So you can bolt that in just so you know where you can place that in around this as well. I hope you found that useful. Just really wanted to give you some direction today. If you're jumping on, just selecting random workouts at the moment, a system that you can actually start to follow, the energy systems you really want to try and target that are really going to help you specifically with your climbing, so that as you're now training through the winter, you know that when you're going out on the bike through the winter, or certainly when you start to spend more time back out on the road again, you can really feel like that you've transformed your climbing, got the most from your training this winter to be able to then go and smash those climbs next year, whether that's just on your own, whether that's in a group, or any events that you're targeting. If you found it useful, please, drop a like on the video, hit that thumbs up button and subscribe to receive our most recent content. I'll see you in the next one.